Hello, this is Kent, and I'm bringing a message to you today. I've entitled it Sex Robots versus Marital Sex. Sex Robots versus Marital Sex. And if that sounds confrontational, that's kind of okay because, in a very real sense, it is us versus them. Now, this information is being taken from an article in the TexasMonthly.com, TexasMonthly.com. It was written by Dan Solomon and it's dated October 3rd, 2018. So I kind of want to get in my source here. I'm going to be reading you some from this article. Uh, it starts off, the title of the article by Dan Solomon is Everything You Should Know About the Proposed Sex Robot Brothel in Houston. For those that might not know, there was a proposal to bring a sex robot brothel and to open one in Houston. They already have one in Toronto, Canada. Starting into the article, it reads, and as anxiety-producing fiction like Blade Runner, Westworld, the HBO show, or the YUI Brunner original, and Black Mirror has shown us, it is because of technology. If you're not a science fiction person, though, you may be unprepared for a reality that will soon be descending upon us, signified by three little words: sex robot brothel. I want to leave the article at that point. This is a short list of movies that he gives: Blade Runner, Westworld. I haven't seen Black Mirror, but there's a number of others, Ex Machina, that show or depict an alternative to marital partners, if not sexual partners. And there's getting to be a lot more of them. So there's Hollywood is pushing this human machine sex robot narrative. Uh, Returning to the article, it says last month Toronto-based company Kinky S Dolls announced that following a successful launch in Canada's most populous city, it would be expanding to the U.S. Specifically, the location of its first American sex robot brothel would be Houston. Continuing with the article, they have some degree of AI using the same basic voice recognition technology that is in your phone or an Alexa device, and the advanced models can make facial expressions and react to things persons say to them. The field, and I don't even know what this word is, the field of teledildononics, ugh, which we swear to gosh is a real term and not something we just made up, is rapidly expanding its technological capacity too. The devices, which are covered in silicone, are built with heaters that can simulate body warmth, and newer models can be quote unquote seduced, requiring stimulation to the parts you would probably expect in order to activate. The question, this is also in the article, is it sanitary? It says it depends. If the partitioners are using condoms, then the risk of sexually transmitted diseases is probably low. Stacy Townsend, CEO of Real Love Sex Dolls, the Austin-based company that leads the industry in human-shaped sex toys, told the Houston Chronicle that the devices are meant to be used by one person and one person only. Though her business models does involve selling and not renting, the devices though her business model does involve selling and not renting the devices, period. They quote cannot be completely sterilized after use, end quote, she told the paper, leaving the article. Now this, whenever I was doing the research for this message, I about fell over laughing at this. They're trying to promote monogamy. I guess we could call it monogamy. One man, one machine, one lifetime. If you can call it that. But the idea of promiscuity one machine having multiple men for partners could result in the spreading of disease, and she says they cannot be sanitized. So it's funny, but it's not. The idea of having fidelity with your sex thing, machine. Returning to the article, it says, how much do they cost? Um, the location in Toronto charges $80 for 30 minutes or $120 for a full hour, according to Vice. That's like a news outlet. Returning to the article. A deluxe package involving two dolls for 4 hours will run $960. Guests who are smitten with the experience that they want to recreate at home can purchase the devices from the company starting around $4,000. The city council in Houston. Okay, that concludes I'm going to depart from the article at that point. Um, Now, I want to let the people know, if you're watching this video, the city council in Houston has already voted down this robot sex brothel. It will not be coming to Houston. Okay, but these dolls, these sex robots can still be purchased, and from the research I did, some of them are selling as high as $22,000. So the idea of robotics and artificial intelligence is what it has always been intended for, is legalized prostitution. Um, and there again, the science fiction movies along those lines have borne that out. I want to shift gears a little bit here, because what we're talking about is the next generation of pornography, if I can say it that way. Um, these sex dolls or sex machines, sex robots, all this is the next generation of pornography. And what pornography has always been as a seduction tool to men, it is convenient, it's on demand, and there's no relationship required. You can get the physical gratification apart from the relationship, but that gratification in and of itself does not satisfy. And we know this from a wide range of either personal experience or interviews with people that have had that experience, that you can have just unbelievable amount of sex, and it doesn't gratify, it doesn't satisfy, it doesn't fill the need, because the need ultimately is for relationship. One interview that I had the privilege of watching was with a porn star, a man who had sex literally with hundreds, if not thousands, of women, and he was on the brink of suicide. He said it was totally, it took the most intimate experience of the human life, the sexual experience, and had trivialized it, and had made it where it was. He said it this way: you could have climax without orgasm. It had no meaning whatsoever, and he was about to kill himself because life had no meaning thereafter. Then of course the interview went and how he had found his way back from the edge. Now then, I want to point out something. A few of you might remember this, and I'm going to quote a little bit from the article. This article is from 2008. You may remember the pastor a long time ago, who, it's been 10 years ago now, that took and he placed a bed first on top of the church, but then later on the stage in the sanctuary where he was preaching. And that was seen by a lot of people as a gimmick, something that was going to just get a lot of attention. And whether or not it was a gimmick or not, it bears out a valid point. Let me share a little bit of the article. This is the CBS article from November 13th, 2008, on the pastor's sex challenge for his congregation. And the article starts off: the pastor of a Dallas area megachurch challenged married congregants during his sermon Sunday to have sex for 7 days in a row, and says that he is practicing what he preaches. Excuse me. Continuing with the article. The Reverend Ed Young, 47, says he believes that society promotes promiscuity, and he wants to reclaim sex for married couples. Sex should be a nurturing spiritual act that strengthens marriage, he said. Amen. Continuing with the article. God says sex should be between a married man and a woman, Young says. I think it's one of the greatest things you can do for your kids, because so goes the marriage, so goes the family. End quote. We'll talk more about that later. Continuing, Young is the founder of the Grapevine, Texas-based non-denominational fellowship church, which draws about 20,000 people each Sunday and also has campuses in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Plano, Texas. That concludes the article. This pastor received a lot of criticism at the time for this being a gimmick. Now, whether or not it's a gimmick or not, that is not the point. The point is that we have way too many couples, way too many married couples in our churches today that are living in marital abstinence. They are living in a state of marital abstinence where they're literally having sex 18 times a year, 12 times a year, 4 times a year. They're basically just roommates in the parenting business. It's horrible, or they just locked into marriages of convenience. We teach our children that sex is for marriage, and then what do they see? We tell our kids sex is for marriage, but then what do they see? Are the kids looking at a married couple and their parents that hold grudges, quarrel constantly, there's endless fighting, and certainly there's no sex? Then why on earth should they listen to their parents who are telling them to wait until they're married to have sex? I think that's a fair question. If the kids are looking at mom and dad who are telling them to wait till they're married to have sex, and then there's no sex going on in that marriage, and that marriage is just a ginormous point of conflict, that is by itself a type of hypocrisy. And the metaphor, let me continue with the message. The point being is that your actions are speaking way, way louder than your words. And what a person has a right to be upset about needs to be evaluated in light of that. The metaphor of the relationship that God has with His church is that of marriage. And I want to point that out because the struggles that we are experiencing in marriage, what marriage is like, the problems that are associated with marriage, the trials that are associated with marriage, that is a direct reflection of God's struggle to interact with and deal with mankind. This is what it's like in God's marriage. Excuse me. Now then, up to this point, it's pretty easy to point out, oh, there's a sex brothel coming to Houston. Who should be outraged? We should all be outraged. Marriage has got a lot of problems. We all agree with that. Marriage does have a lot of problems. But just pointing out things that we should be outraged about, or pointing out things that we all agree about, that's just one thing. We need to shift and ask the question, so how do we fix the relationship and return to a God-centered, Christian-based sexuality for our marriages? Okay, first of all, it's really not a sex problem. And then I'm going to deal with kind of the personal level here. We've talked about societal issues and the prostitution issues and the coming AI issues and what that has, but on a personal basis, in a real day-to-day life, down to brass tacks, how do we fix this, Pastor? Okay, first of all, it's really not a sexual problem. The marital abstinence is not really a sexual problem. It is actually a relationship problem. The problem is the relationship is broken, and therefore the married couple are living in abstinence. Because the relationship is broken, then there's no sex. The married couple is living in abstinence. If we fix and repair the relationship, a healthy sex life should follow. Let me say that again. If we fix and repair the relationship, a healthy sex life should follow. And sex should be affirming and reassuring. Let me say that. Sex between a man and a woman, a husband and wife, should be affirming and reassuring. It should never, ever be degrading. It should never, ever be a degrading experience. So we can't allow that to be part of the case in the sexuality that takes place in the Christian bedroom. Okay, now here I'm going to give you 3 quick steps because of the brevity and the that's needed for these videos. I'm just going to leave you with 3 quick steps on how to improve your relationship, and by extension, the sex relationship in the marriage. Step number 1 is stop tearing down your partner. Stop tearing down your partner. If I go to these couples that are having problems, and if I were to ask one of them, if I could get one of them in the office alone, and say, if I were to ask them, what do you do to provoke and hurt your partner? Straightforward question. What do you do to provoke and to hurt your partner? They can tell me. They can write it down. And if you need to, get a piece of paper and start writing it down. Things I do to piss off my partner. Excuse my language. Things I do to hurt my partner. Things I do to anger my partner. Write it down if that's what you need to do. Make a list. Probably you already know. Okay? Guess what? Stop doing it. Stop it. Now then, what I want you to do is go a step further, and don't just watch some video on YouTube and then say, well, I'm going to quietly and privately try to stop doing this. Go to your partner, ask them for forgiveness. Say, hey, I've been doing A, B, and C that really hurts you and makes you angry. I'm sorry, that was a jerk thing for me to do, and I'm going to strive to not do that anymore. When you do that, your partner may add a few more items to the list. Hey, you also do this, this, and this. If your partner does that, do not become a defensive. Do not become defensive. If your partner adds to the list, thank them and try your best not to do those things also. And do it today. Step number 2. Step number 2. Ask God to help you fight your partner's inner fears and demons. Number 2, ask God to help you fight your partner's inner fears and demons. Stop playing on your partner's insecurities and help them grow past them or through them. Okay? Whether we're talking about the man or the woman, women have things that they deeply fear. Okay? They have things that play in their heart and mind, and it's almost like a boogeyman that comes with the territory. Help them to deal with it. Help them to grow through it. Help them to conquer it. Help them maybe to even just to acknowledge it. And the third point is to remember that how you treat your mate is a direct reflection of how you are treating God. How you treat your mate is a direct reflection of how you treat and how you are treating and how you feel about and how you are thinking about God. If this is a person that God has brought into your life and blessed you with, and if you're hurting that person, if you're disrespecting that person, if you're undermining that person, then that is by extension what you are doing to God, because God is the giver of the gift. If you look at your mate, your husband or your wife, and you see confusion, chaos, turmoil, hurt, pain, and just a woundedness, and you know that you're partially responsible for that, then it's time to turn all of that around and do it in prayer. Do it in the sight of God. Start praying together as a couple. Start loving one another again. Start treating that person to show them the love of Christ and to have them see the love of Christ in you. Now, those are just 3 steps. I know it's kind of a brief, quick fix, but those are 3 things that you can start doing today that will help you to repair your marriage, help you to solidify the sexuality of your marriage, and help to insulate you and your partner from seducers and sexual sin outside of marriage. Help you to show your kids what a healthy marriage looks like, where they see a mom and a dad that can hug each other and kiss each other and love on each other, where it's not just fighting and grudges and turmoil and unforgiveness and all of that polluted junk. May God bless you. May God keep you. I hope that you found this video informative. I hope that you found it uplifting, but more importantly than that, I hope that you have found this to be a video that supports and strengthens marriage, and I hope that it has sparked some thought or element of growth in your soul. May you be blessed always in your home and in your families, in your communities, and in your churches. And God's blessing be upon you. Amen.